Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories. At least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
Hello. Welcome to Safety Wars for Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. How's everybody doing out there? Yes, as we get closer to our nations, that's the United States. I know we're listened to around the world. Our nation's 250th anniversary, I will be wearing more and more of this patriotic apparel. We got the Safety Wars. Right? Patriotic, red, white, and blue. With 76. Right, there we go, 76. Or 1776. Oh yeah, I gotta start selling this stuff. But anyway, we're working on that. Anyway, we were ahead of the curve. Again, you listen to us, you're gonna be ahead of the curve too. Well, what do you mean, Jim? Today, everybody was talking about the Iran deal. You heard it here first. Yesterday. So what we do is, how do we get the news? Well, we go to the aggregate sites, of course, but the other thing is that we go to the government websites and get it for ourselves. That's what we do. We got some comments on the anti-Semitism piece I did last night. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have, it's fortunate that nobody got hurt, number one. It's unfortunate in my community you're getting a lot of this anti-Semitism. This was just one thing where people are saying bad things. My question is this: when is it going to move to saying bad things to doing bad things? Oh yeah, and by the way, if you think Clarkstown, New York is a beautiful city where hatred has no home, guess what? Unfortunately, that bore out that that's not true. There, not much goes on in that city of Clarkstown, or New City, New York. Not New City, not New York City, New City of Rockland County, but it's there. And again, what do? We got to work to get away from this. Is all I could say here. All right, so where are we going to go here? A lot of news tonight. We got like 30 tabs open here. We're going to start out here with... All right. This is from the U.S. Department of Labor. We'll start out with June 15th. I don't believe we shared this story. U.S. Department of Labor secures federal court order requiring 4 Washington-based restaurants to pay $750K in wages, damages to 42 workers. Status Spokane, Washington. The owners of Rancho Chico agreed to pay back wages after investigation, but later defaulted. U.S. Department of Labor has secured a federal consent judgment requiring 4 Washington-based restaurants to pay $750,000 in back wages and damages to 42 workers after investigation uncovered minimum wage and overtime violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. I mean, that was a lot of stuff because this is like the minimum wage for restaurant workers, like, well, let's see what it is. I mean, it's Right, entered in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Washington, the order comes after the department's Wage and Hour Division found the owners of Blanco Incorporated and Mi Rancho Chico Incorporated doing business as Rancho blah, 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 going on, failed to pay employees required overtime and 1/2 of their regular rate of pay for all work hours worked over 40 hours a work week. Additionally, Rancho paid some non-exempt employees on a salary basis for all hours worked, which led to earnings below the federal minimum wage, $7.25 per hour. In addition, the investigation found that Rancho Chico engaged in unlawful retaliation after terminating an employee who filed a wage complaint. That's not good. They also found violations of child labor laws prohibiting minors from operating hazardous. Sorry about that. That came up. We get spam here all the time. Federal child, right? So again, child labor law violations, not paying the minimum wage. Following the investigation, Rodriguez agreed to pay back the wages to the 42 employees that ultimately failed to pay the amounts owed. This led to the Office of Solicitor and U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Washington to pursue a federal court order to compel payment of the back wages and damages. I'm sure that this is not mentioning any type of damages, just in back wages. Oh, back wages and damages. I don't know. Pay your bills. I don't know what else to say, folks. U.S. Department of Labor demands immediate action from governors on unemployment insurance fraud. Acting U.S. Secretary of Labor Keith Sonderling issued formal letters to governors of 53 U.S. states and territories. That's pretty much all of them, demanding immediate action to combat fraud, waste, and abuse within the unemployment system. In the letters, the department announced its intent to crack down on rampant fraud and end mismanagement, improper payments, and corruption within the UI program. Acting Secretary Sonderling notified states that in partnership with the Office of the Inspector General, the department will use every available enforcement tool, including withholding administrative funds from states for the first time in history, to ensure compliance and protecting unemployment system integrity and safeguarding taxpayer dollars. Most glaring examples: California, $20 billion in alleged debt to the federal government after years of fraud, improper payments, and mismanagement. New York, losing an estimated $2 million every day to fraud and improper payments while posting one of the highest improper payment rates in the nation, exceeding 20%. And Illinois, improperly paying out more than $320 million in taxpayer funds at the rate of more than 14%. So let me point out what they are not saying here. Okay, what are they not saying? These are 3 states that normally go in the Electoral College for Democrats. That's what they're not saying. So here's my question. And I don't have the list here, right? I have a link to the list. Probably could find it if I wanted to. But they're calling out these 3 states here. Is this in retaliation, or are these legitimate charges? I have to ask that question here. I suspect that they're largely true based on my experience with things in these 3 states, especially New York and California. So I don't know what to tell you here. This is from today also. U.S. Department of Labor recovers $512 million in fraudulent unemployment claims. Now, a case in point is here. What are the other states? Are they not enforcing these laws there as hard as in these 3 states? I don't know. U.S. Department of Labor and its Office of Inspector General today announced the recovery of $512 million plus in fraudulent CARES Act funds to the U.S. Department of the Treasury. This marks the second major recovery from the Maryland Division of Unemployment Insurance, bringing the total funds recovered from the state to more than $1 billion. Today's return of hard-earned American taxpayer dollars represents more than financial recovery. It reinforces our commitment to protecting American workers and the programs they depend on. Again, another blue state. This result was made possible through close coordination with the Department's Office of Inspector General. Together we are restoring trust and integrity in these programs, putting money back where it belongs. Again, shame on you. This is from the EPA. All right. Let's go to the other one. EPA Administrator U.S. EPA Deputy Administrator Fotohi, I guess. Tours key community sites in Seattle, Washington. EPA Deputy Administrator David Fotohi marked his one-year anniversary of serving in the agency by touring key community sites in Seattle, Washington. Right? So, wanted to double check on the progress being made. This is a quote from him. Over the last year, I've had the honor to work alongside with dedicated men and women of the Trump EPA to put human health and the environment at the forefront of every action. From what I saw in Seattle, it is evident that the work being done by EPA Region 10 across Washington State is playing a key role in advancing this effort, said EPA Deputy Administrator Fohuti. Through cooperative federalism, EPA, that means federalism, meaning that the states manage things, right? You think federalism meant the opposite, but no. Federalism means that states manage things and localities. I believe the Catholic Church calls that consistory, but I might be wrong on that. EPA is not only turning old industrial sites into productive community areas, but also building a foundation for future economic development. The agency will continue to work with the communities of Seattle to support clean air, land, and water for all. Since day one, Region 10 has been working tirelessly to achieve measured results across Washington and the region. Community members understand their unique needs, and it is through partnering with them that we are able to achieve the best results possible. We are proud of the work we are doing to return our communities to wholeness and power the great American comeback. Deputy Administrator Fotui's first cleanup stop was a visit to the Duwamish River People's Park and the shoreline habitat. Serving as an important place for the community fishing, EPA is working to restore the river back to a state that will allow community members to eat local fish again. Again, that's part of the Clean Water Act to make all waters swimmable and fishable. Later, Deputy Administrator toured the Wyckoff Eagle Harbor Superfund site on Bainbridge Island, which will be turned into a community park. Right, so this is nothing new. This is all part of the brownfields stuff here. Right? No, I've worked on plenty of them, and I tell you what, it's a good program. EPA New England celebrates major cleanup milestone at Raymark Superfund site. This is out of Stratford, Connecticut. Today, U.S. EPA celebrated a major cleanup milestone at the Raymark Superfund site in Stratford, Connecticut. You know what? Hold on. I might have done work here. Hold on. Let me look this up. Over in Stratford. Where is this? Hold on. Superfund site map. Let's see where we are. No, I was not. I know where this is. I know exactly where this is. Okay, I'm going to do a share screen here. I knew this sounded familiar. I worked on a project right next door to this. Right, Superfund site. So this, I'm sorry about the orientation. You can complain to Lee Zeldin on this. Yeah, so the Corsi Memorial Airport, there is an Amazon facility if you see where my cursor is, right around here, right? And and the site is over here, right? Yeah, I used to go to that park all the time when I worked in the area here. That was during COVID. So I know a little something about it. Just a little something about it. Raymark Industries Incorporated site is one of EPA's most complex Superfund sites in New England, occupying hundreds of acres across Stratford. Because of this complexity, the site was divided into 9 separate units, known as operable units, with different investigations remedy. I remember being like, I know this neighborhood, right? Going to the park in that neighborhood on my lunch hour. So I had no idea here. So this was added to the NPL list in 1995, right? And now we're at 31 years later. Now we're talking about this stuff getting cleaned up. And again, let's see, 1989. So we've had how many presidents? We've had Bush, we had Clinton, we've had the other Bush, we've had Obama, we've had Trump, and we've had Biden. So we're on 7 presidents here with this. All right? It starts to get laughable for these companies that it takes this long to do this. But no, but one of this is getting funding. Pardon me. Getting on the NPL list. I know a couple of sites that are on and off the NPL list, depending on who's in charge. Okay. Here we have making American communities healthy and lead safe. EPA reaches settlement agreement with Vermont-based construction company. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency announced a settlement agreement with the South Burlington, Vermont construction company, Rearch Company, resolving alleged violations of TSCA, that's the Toxic Substances Control Act, and the Renovation, Repair, and Painting Rule, which I have, I used to have that credential. At a job site in New Hampshire, these laws and regulations are designed to protect the public and children from exposure to lead paint and lead dust hazards during renovations of pre-1978 housing. EPA common sense lead paint regulations help protect the health and well-being of our New England communities, and particularly children, by preventing lead exposure, said EPA New England Regional Administrator Mark Sanborn. This settlement highlights EPA's commitment to enforcing lead-based paint laws and regulations that apply to entities performing renovations in pre-1978 housing, reduce the risk from lead-based paint. During an inspection of Rearch's renovation of the historic Walden Mill apartments in Newport, New Hampshire, EPA observed various alleged violations of requirements related to lead-based paint and lead dust-safe work practices. These alleged violations included failure to contain renovation dust and debris, failure to recover floors with plastic sheeting, lack of warning signs, and failure to maintain records and demonstrate compliance with these requirements. Under the settlement agreement, Rearch has paid a penalty of a whopping $18,715. All that stuff, and they only have a penalty of $18,715. Settlement also certifies that the company is currently and will continue to operate in compliance with the RRP rule by ensuring that surfaces are covered with impermeable material during renovations of target housing, clear signage is posted regarding work areas for occupants and others. Records are maintained for up to 3 years to demonstrate compliance with RRP rule for renovations. Renovation waste has been properly collected and stored. All right, and records and summaries, are to be maintained and provided property owners and managers for proper lead disclosure to tenants. Since despite improvements over the last 50 years, ongoing exposure to lead where our families live, work, and play present a health risk, especially children. To combat this issue in 2025, the Trump EPA reestablished a committee of senior leaders across the agency's program offices in 10 regions to drive success in reducing children's exposure to lead. Now, my own opinion is that Congress has dropped the ball. When they passed these laws, they just made them civil penalties. What has to happen is that they have to be criminal. They have to be absolutely criminal. Here, number one. And number two, right, you have a civil aspect. You also have a criminal aspect. And also, for the EPA inspectors who screw up this stuff, there has to be disciplinary action. They're not enforcing this stuff. We need to know why, and there needs to be hearings as to why this stuff is not being enforced. Why does it have to be? And I tell you what, for every company that does this, there's probably dozens of companies that do that and don't get caught. All right. EPA proposes cleanup plan to address contamination on properties at the former Kiltone Company Superfund site floodplain in Vineland. U.S. EPA is proposing cleanup plan to remove arsenic and lead contaminated, lead from floodplain properties on the Tarklin branch in Vineland, New Jersey. The proposal calls for excavating contaminated soil, transporting it off-site for disposal, and restoring impacted properties. This will allow EPA to remove contamination from residential and commercial properties to protect human health. EPA is taking action to protect Vineland families from arsenic and lead in soil, said EPA Regional Administrator Michael Martucci. This proposed plan focuses on the properties where action is needed in the shorter term and builds on years of EPA continued work to address water contamination from the former Kiltone facility. EPA has identified approximately 55 properties with arsenic and lead in soil at levels that require cleanup. Any cleanup done on private property will be done after permission is obtained from the owner, and it will be carried out in coordination with the owner. Under the proposed plan, EPA would excavate contaminated soil to a depth of 2 feet or less in most areas and dispose of it off-site. Under the proposal, all impacted properties will be restored. EPA may put additional protections such as deed notices or physical barriers in place to prevent exposure and keep contamination, keep the cleanup protective. All right, so you gotta love this, all right? The former Kiltone Company operated a pesticide manufacturing facility in Vineland from the late 1910s to the early 1930s. These operations released arsenic and lead contaminating the former facility, nearby properties, and downstream areas along the Tarklin branch. I'm a little bit familiar here. EPA added the site to the MPL list in 2016 and has since completed cleanup work at 85 nearby residential properties, with additional cleanup continuing at the former facility and nearby non-residential properties. This proposed plan will allow EPA to move ahead more quickly on floodplain properties while other site investigations continue. And they're having a public meeting right now, even as we speak. So, 1910, 1930, contamination has been there almost 100 years. What the hell happened in the last 100 years? And we talked about that last week. Congressman John Rutherford and City of Jacksonville to highlight septic tank phase-out project. Then Jacksonville, Florida, U.S. EPA Congressman John Rutherford, and the City of Jacksonville. Well, just so we're clear, we'll hold a media event on Thursday, June 18th, highlighting the Cristobal Septic Tank Phase-Out Project, STPO project, in partnership with JEA, Jacksonville's community-owned utility. The City of Jacksonville, in partnership with JEA, launched the Septic Tank Phase-Out project, eliminates septic tank systems in the Cristobal neighborhood. It was supported by 2 congressionally directed EPA's grants totaling $6.8 million. So I guess phasing out septic tanks is a good thing for the most part. And all right, that's as far as the EPA is concerned. Let's take this off. Oh no, actually, we're going to head on over to the White House. We close this out. All right. First Lady, this is from June 11th. We haven't been over here recently. First Lady Melania Trump launches Fostering the Future accounts, America's first saving and investment vehicle for foster youth. I guess that's good. They don't have parents to watch out for them or other caring adults often. First Lady Melania Trump launched her Fostering the Future accounts, a new financial resource established to empower foster youth to be physically autonomous upon reaching the age of majority. Right. So what we often hear with these kids is that they turn adults at 18 and then all of a sudden, okay, there's the door, folks. You're on your own. Now, what ends up happening, what goes on? They go in, their life spirals out of control, or they go into the military because they have nowhere else to go. Or prison. The historic measure is the first in the United States and designed by the First Lady in tandem with the U.S. Department of Treasury. Already 23 governors have pledged to set up Fostering the Future accounts for children within their care. All right, so again, giving people ownership. Again, what my question is this. What the hell is going to happen if they don't have financial responsibility? They're going to piss the money away, right? Hey, you got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. What are you going to do with it? Building on prior, they're going to probably buy a new car or drugs if they don't watch out. I hate to be pessimistic, but that's, dump an 18-year-old with $40,000 with no financial understanding. You'll see what the hell happens. Oh, by the way, how do I know that? I know that. All right. Believe me, I know it. Seen it at least 7 times in my life. Yes, even back in the 1980s. Building on prior actions to strengthen American seafood production and support working fishing communities, right? This proclamation restores access to hundreds of thousands of square miles of Pacific waters for commercial fishing managed under the existing federal law. I have determined that restoring access to responsibly managed fishing grounds will promote economic activity. So this is where the guy, Captain Sig Hansen, was at this event. Right? And what the idea is to go, and the fishing industry has taken a nosedive up in Alaska and some other areas for a whole host of reasons. But a lot of those areas were off limits. So now we're opening them up to fishing. All right, let's see what else we got here. And number 1. So this is the Antifa terrorist network. Now, I have discussed this here today. Back when Rockland County had an active community emergency response team, and all this Antifa and BLM stuff was coming about, what did we have? We had people that would go to the community emergency response training and see what the procedures were in community emergency response. Jimmy, that didn't happen. You're making that up. No, I was there at those meetings. This is before COVID, right? And in 2020, with all the unrest, before all the restrictions and everything else, the last meeting I went to, there was a carload of Antifa activists that I struck up a conversation with. And, we're learning, what were you doing? Oh, I just got back from such and such a city where I was at a riot. And I'm here to learn. It's First Aid CPR night. We're learning First Aid CPR and AED use. We're learning this, and then the next week, we're learning this tonight. And, same people. Oh, well, again, I don't know if that's what killed the program, where we had a bunch of people who would never pass a background check involved with the program. But essentially, that's what happened. I know that happened because I talked to people, and people brag about that, and I don't give any judgment here. They were in where were you from? I was in Minnesota last week. Oh yeah, that's basically it. Last year, President Donald Trump designated Antifa a domestic terror. Regardless of what your opinion is, Antifa a domestic terrorist organization and directed the full power of the federal government to hunt down, disrupt, and dismantle the violent anarchist network. This week, the Department of Justice struck another decisive blow by charging 15 Antifa-linked terrorists in a conspiracy to violently obstruct lawful immigration enforcement operations in Minneapolis. Right? And again, this goes down with all of the stuff. I mean, again, Minnesota, Oregon, Texas, Washington, New Jersey. Right? So just for complete disclosure here, there are people I know who were at the Newark ICE Detention Center. Right? Now, I don't know what they were doing there, but they were there. Right? Because we saw their Facebook posts and camera shots. Right? All right. Okay, what are the nominations in the Senate? Judge. Okay. I'm just leaping through here. That's all we got from the president. All right. Now, I normally do not cover things from what could be considered by some questionable websites or conspiracy websites. Here now, this is from, and I'm sharing it today, right? And I'm going to be commenting on it, so I'm using this under fair use. Officials warn there's something in the water and may be making you infertile. And here's a picture of generic chemical abortion pills. Up in here. Your water may be contaminated by abortion pills, officials warn. The EPA told the Daily Caller News Foundation, I have yet to find, now this is them quoting them, I have yet to find, and I'm going to be clear here, the document associated with this. Spent a good time looking for it. Pharmaceuticals like mifepristone encompass a diverse group of chemicals, including prescription and over-the-counter drugs. An EPA spokesman called the Daily Caller. EPA is currently reviewing comments submitted on its first draft contaminant list. That's this list here. Right, and this made the news a little bit a while back here when this came out in April. Go and check it out on the Federal Register. Drinking Water Contaminant Candidate List 6 draft, issued on April 6th of this year. And comment period has been closed. EPA is currently reviewing all this other. So while EPA cannot predetermine the outcome of its rulemaking, the intent of the draft 6 candidate contaminant list is to begin the process of evaluating the occurrence of several contaminant groups such as pharmaceuticals and drinking water. EPA's mission, the intent of the Safe Drinking Water, is to ensure safe drinking water for the American public, spokesperson said. Millions of Americans have long demanded answers about pharmaceuticals in the water, and EPA is proud to have announced actions to address these concerns. So it's for a whole bunch with this, right? And here it goes. For over a year, lawmakers and others have raised concerns over the abortion bill's potential risk of harming the general population's fertility. Americans deserve, at the very least, a science-based review on mifepristone presence, I don't know how to pronounce it, and wastewater and any impacts that would have on public health, said spokesman for Republican Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway, who initiated a June 5th letter to the EPA, told right? So 1 in 25 women who take chemical abortion drugs end up in the emergency room. They commonly suffer from a whole host of things. We have become aware of the growing threat to the country's waterways. So my question is this. With this, are they concerned about pharmaceuticals in the water, which is a legitimate issue, or are they concerned with specifically this one to reduce the number of abortions? That's my question here. With that, so here's the letter here from Catherine Hanaway. I was able to pull this one up, and again, this is the part of the public record. To whom it may concern, as in our capacity as chief legal officer of our respective states, we have become aware of a growing threat to the country's waterways as a result of the pharmaceutical drug mifepristone and its approved generics that ought to be addressed by the agency. To offer some background, the drug is a synthetic steroid and endocrine disruptor that interferes with progesterone receptors in the uterus. And it goes on and on and on and on. When the drug was first approved back in 2001, the FDA recognized the inherent danger posed by the drug, promulgated a regimen and risk evaluation mitigation strategy, also known as REMS. Over the last decade, however, the FDA has eliminated many of the protections that minimize the health risks posed by the drug and its approved generics, including the in-person dispensing and checkup requirements that kept medical staff involved in the process. Not only were the FDA's changes to REMS unlawful and unsafe, but the loosening the regulations have also increased the number of chemical abortions occurring in the home, resulting in tens of chemically tainted medical waste being flushed into American waterways. According to the Guttmacher Institute, which is the research arm of I'm adding commentary to this. The Guttmacher Institute is the research arm. It used to be called the Alan Guttmacher Institute. May still be there. Of Planned Parenthood. Chemical abortions accounted for 63% of all U.S. abortions formal health care system, and as of 2023, compared to 31% in 2014. And this is because of the rulings by the ruling by the Supreme Court, by the way, with that, right? Concerning abortion. Again, what they're not telling you. These numbers do not include managed chemical abortions that occur when abortion providers mail mifepristone in violation of state law, which the Guttmacher Institute notes is also increasing. The upsurge in homesteading chemical abortions has serious implications for the Safe Drinking Water Act. The metabolites and its approved generic of this medication remain active post-excretion, meaning they retain their considerable affinity. And we're locking up. Again, as they're saying, it's an endocrine disruptor. It causes all different types of issues. I don't know. I'm just calling them as I see it. With this, why do we talk? No, they say don't talk about abortion, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but it has. But what we're talking about here is pharmaceuticals more. Right? With this. So, in addition, recent research suggests that the medication can affect reproductive organ development and fertility, yet unlike other endocrine-disrupting chemicals such as polyfluoroalkyl substances, the agency has yet to take necessary action to mitigate the risk of to vulnerable populations. So they're saying that they're doing this to protect women. Not only have many of our offices taken the lead in medical multi-state action aimed at RMS protections, we've also initiated actions in state court. Again, I don't know exactly what's going on here with this. Are they, and the they being the attorney generals, are they, oh, here they are, right? is this a backdoor way to outlawing this form of abortion? With that, I don't know. And it just goes to show you, again, how politics works. You think they're worried about one thing, and then they argue another. It's similar to a Pigouvian tax, where you're not going to attack the contaminant. You're not going to attack the industry. You're going to attack the contamination. So this is akin, at least my understanding, to what's called a Pigouvian tax. So a Pigouvian tax is where you would put a tax on emissions, in the hopes of those emissions being reduced because the company wants to pay less in taxes. This is a similar thing there, where we're going to try to do cut down the number of abortions by outlawing the chemicals on that, or impacting the chemicals. So who are we talking about here? Attorney Generals of Alabama, Idaho, Nebraska, Alaska, Indiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Texas, and Louisiana. Now, why do we go through this? Again, environmental discussions here with this. All different kinds of stuff going on. We do not want our listeners to be ignorant. Now, I'm going to finish up with this one here. We're cutting it off a little bit earlier here with this. This is pre-recorded. We'll probably come on after this. We may not. We may have pre-recorded programming. For Safety Wars and the Safety FM family, this is Jim Posel signing off. Hold on.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Donald Trump has defended his administration's deal with Iran, but has warned he will restart bombing if Tehran doesn't honour the agreement. Speaking at the end of the G7 summit in France, Trump said the deal would help Iran avoid an economic catastrophe.
On Sunday, we reached an agreement with Iran that achieves everything we set out to accomplish, everything and much more. I let him know. I said, look, if you don't adhere to the agreement, I don't want to do that, but we're going to bomb the hell out of you.
He said technical discussions on the removal of enriched uranium will begin immediately. Similarly, Trump noted US sanctions relief and the return of frozen funds would be based on merit. Meanwhile, G7 leaders have issued a joint communiqué on the final day of the summit in the French alpine town of Vineland, pledging a new package of support for Ukraine, including air defence systems and energy resilience measures ahead of winter. The statement also praises the US-Iran deal that's due to be signed on Friday in Switzerland. That in itself is an implicit rebuke of Israel, whose recent strikes on Beirut have nearly derailed the deal. FSN's Ross Cullen has more from Evian.
Now, in terms of the difficulties of trying to get through another winter, Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking on Tuesday here in Evian, said that he wanted a deal and a meeting with President Putin before winter, saying that he's ready for negotiation and meeting the Russian leader at any time.
The US Central Bank has left rates unchanged. The new Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Walsh headed up his first two-day monetary policy setting meeting in Washington, D.C. The steady rate was expected, despite inflation running well above the central bank's 2% target. FSN's Mitch McCann sent this report from New York.
And I think people might question that, but it comes at a time when the US has agreed to this MOU with Iran, and there is a possibility that inflation could drop when the Strait of Hormuz opens in the coming days, according to the US administration. So they may feel there is a reason to wait this one out for a while and see what happens.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has been hosting leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, for the 25th Russian-ASEAN Summit. FSN's Daria Bunachuk reports from Moscow.
At the Russia-ASEAN Summit in Kazan, Russia's President Vladimir Putin is meeting with the leaders of the Philippines, the Prime Ministers of Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, Laos and Cambodia. The foreign leaders gathered to discuss global and regional issues, energy and food security, trade and common security challenges. 4 documents will be adopted at the summit, including the Strategic Partnership Plan for the next 4 years, the Kazan Declaration and joint statements on cooperation in energy and culture.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, more on the extraordinary news that arson attacks on properties owned by British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer originated in Russia. The Financial Times reported on Tuesday that pro-Kremlin hacktivists, combining hacking skills with a commitment to acts of sabotage, are linked to Moscow. Earlier this week, a 22-year-old Ukrainian construction worker and a 27-year-old Ukrainian Romanian were convicted of arson attacks on the Prime Minister's family home and other targets linked to him. Margaret Gilmore is a journalist and lecturer on security issues.
It's a technique that the Russians have been using for quite a long time. You may remember last year, for example, 6 Bulgarians were jailed in the UK for spying for Russia from inside the UK. Again, they were people who were really driven by money, low-level criminals who were just doing what they were being told and being paid the sort of money that they could only dream of if they were doing their normal jobs, which would be to work on a construction site or something like that. So it's a common technique. We know that they're doing it. It came out in the court case. They were driven by money.
The Russians reportedly communicated with the arsonists via Telegram, an app that is notably not included in the UK's proposed social media ban for the under-16s that was announced this week. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, US President Donald Trump has defended his administration's deal with Iran, but has warned that he would restart bombing if Tehran doesn't honour the agreement. G7 leaders have issued a joint communique on the final day of the summit and pledged a new packet of support for Ukraine. And the US Central Bank has, as expected, left rates unchanged despite high inflation. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Every day on the job, there's a moment. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't, where everything hangs in the balance. A loose bolt, a missed clip, a bad assumption. Or maybe the opposite, a choice made right. The right PPE, the right lockout, the right conversation at just the right time. Some folks call that luck. Here on Safety Wars, we call it something else. The kiss of safety. That quiet moment where a safe choice gives you another sunrise, another paycheck, another night with the people you love. And the truth? No policy, no regulation, no binder full of procedures means a thing. Unless you live it. Unless your team lives it. Unless safety isn't a chore, it's a culture. A war we fight every day, one small decision at a time. So today, we're talking about that kiss, the one you don't want to miss. The moment safety saves your life before you even knew it needed to. Let's break down the stories, the lessons, and the hard-won wins that make the difference. This is Safety Wars, and the war's still on.
And here we are for hour 2 of Safety Wars. Yeah, we're here. Now, there's a lot of interesting news stories out there we never get to, so this is probably going to be added to tomorrow's show. The name of the song is Falling, and all of the stuff we do have licenses for, just and we are putting together another AI album, and you too can listen to these in your leisure. And remember, when you listen to this stuff on Spotify or on Apple News, we actually do get royalties with us, believe it or not. All right, so where are we? Let's mosey on over to Study Finds. All right, studyfinds.org with things, right? And that's where a lot of the stuff is out there. Why do we, pardon me, I itch in my ear here. Why do we talk about Study Finds here? .org. A lot of the mainstream media, that's what they go for a lot of their information. Except for us, we get it the day before here, right? And you have to wait until usually the next day or 2 or 3 days later. So, hold on 1 minute. Here, hold on. I know this is live radio. Hang on. All right, sorry there, guys. Everybody wants to talk to me, right? Now we're into hour 2, which we haven't done for a long time. Yes, AI robots going to go rogue. Researcher explains how easily it can happen. This is by The Conversation. Research led by Faisal Barez from the University of Oxford, one of the top universities in the world, we find out tonight. Humanoid robots, powered by internet-trained AI, rapidly closing the performance gap with humans, but their flexible language-driven behavior creates new, hard-to-predict safety risks. In homes and hospitals. In lab tests, researchers use only creative text prompts to bypass built-in safety filters and push AI-controlled robots toward hazardous plans, revealing how easily harmless instructions can be twisted into dangerous situations. The study warns that current US, UK, and EU laws are not ready for physical harms caused by AI robots and calls for independent hard safety layers, like no-go zones around people and emergency brakes that don't rely on AI's judgment. Earlier this year in Beijing, we were just talking about that. A humanoid robot crossed a half-marathon finish line in a blistering 50 minutes and 26 seconds. The feat immediately lit up global headlines for shattering the human world record by almost 7 minutes. This performance came with many asterisks. The robot followed pre-mapped tracks, stayed in its own dedicated lane, and a human support crew trailing behind in case something broke. The performance gap didn't just close, it evaporated down from over 2.5 hours in 2025. This wasn't just about better motors or lighter carbon fiber. It reflected a massive shift in what the robot actually is, and that transformation has implications for homes and hospitals. So they have a picture from YouTube here. This looks like similar to a droid from the Star Wars movies, the movies 1, 2, or 3. We're damned, right? From 77% to 50%, CDC trust has never dropped this fast in recent polling. This is from Study Finds, analysis reviews by John Anderer. In 1 year, the CDC lost trust of half the country. In a nutshell, trust in the CDC has collapsed from 77% to 50% in a single year, putting it roughly on par with local mayors and well below nurses, doctors, and pharmacists. Democrats saw the steepest drop, falling from 92 to 34%, while Republican trust actually ticked up slightly from 63 to 67%. Support for childhood vaccine requirements remains strong at 77%, but a growing minority, 40%, 42% overall, and 65% of Republicans, supports reducing the recommended vaccine schedule. They already did that a couple of weeks ago. For decades, the CDC was one of the most trusted institutions in American life. Now, I'm going to say this much. I was rather vocal when it happened 25 years ago. The CDC was really great at certain things. Managing an emergency, like COVID, like the anthrax cleanup, not so much. Right? And it's unfortunate that that's the only matrix people look at when thinking about the CDC. They actually do a lot of really good work. Most of their work is really good, just that they cannot, when it comes to managing an emergency, they're not the best. All right? I'm saying through collective experience with COVID and also personal experience. So what's the solution to this? You have to have a government agency staffed with people. I'll throw that safety wars hat in the ring. Here, people who know how to manage emergencies. Here with this and communicate. So here we have when Americans who served on a jury trust courts more, fewer are getting that chance. This is from Study Finds from John Anderer. Got jury duty? Research finds the experience may change how Americans view courts. Americans who served on a jury in the past 5 years are more likely to trust courts, view judges favorably, see the legal system as legitimate than those who hadn't. Public confidence in the Supreme Court has fallen from 68% in 2019 to 41% in March 2025, lowest level recorded in 20 years of tracking. Jury trials have declined sharply for decades, and the share of adults reporting recent jury service dropped from an average 9%, just 4%. Researchers are calling for an expanded civic education in schools, workplaces, and communities as an alternative path to building public understanding of the court. I have a better idea. So you have a 12-person jury. You take the average judge's salary, and you divide it by 12, and for the length of the trial, that's what the jury gets paid, not this $5 a day. I know people up in Rockland County that got called on a federal jury, right, for New York. And they got subpoenaed, right, because you get a jury duty notice. It's a subpoena. And the courthouse is not via Zoom. It's federal court. They don't do things via Zoom usually. The court was in Manhattan, which means that is either to serve on a jury duty starting 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. You have to leave the house at 5 a.m. in the morning, go over to Manhattan, get a parking spot, because I tell you what, mass transit doesn't run that early. Really, it doesn't. Now, if you wanted to get there by 8 o'clock, you probably would have had to find a train at about 4:30 in the morning. Go all the way over there. It's out of your own dime. If you drive, it's tax, it's tolls, gas, and parking. If you go by train, it's time. You stand all day in jury duty, then it's a 3-hour commute home. 2.5, 3-hour commute home. And then they wonder, oh, why doesn't anyone want to be on jury duty? Oh. For me, it always seems like I got jury duty at the most inconvenient time, and I always went. But on the other hand is this. The jury is set up because oftentimes the courts are not fair or see things differently. But people who have been on a jury trust the courts more. I know one thing. My father, God rest his soul, tomorrow it will be 4 years that he passed away, June 18th here. All right? He went on jury duty, and he said, I'll never freaking trust a judge again. I'll never judge a prosecutor again after he was on a grand jury for 17 weeks, 1 day a week for 17 weeks. So he's one of those people and would have been one of those people in the opposite end here. By March 2025, that share had collapsed to just 41%, right? That's inside the numbers telling details. People who have served on the jury trust courts far more than those who haven't. Why? Maybe it's to avoid jury duty. A new study from researchers from Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania, one of the top universities in the world, published in Judicature, found that the jury service was associated with greater confidence in the justice system. People who had served were more likely to see courts as fair, to trust them overall, and to view judges more favorably. As jury trials continue to disappear across the country, fewer and fewer Americans are ever getting that first-hand look at justice in action. I tell you what, on the experiences, I never sat on a trial because I got thrown out during voir dire. Right? They put me on accident cases. I told them I'm probably not the person for that, you know? But for what I've seen, we go in there under the voir dire process, and because I do this program and because I deal with people and I deal with, notice how people are manipulated by everybody in there. Absolutely manipulated. At least that's my experience. And of course, what do we do here? We preach against manipulating people and dealing with people directly, especially today. Supreme Court trust has plummeted to a 20-year low. This study has been tracking the Supreme Court since 2005, where 75% of Americans expressed high or moderate confidence in the institution by March 2025. Only 41% felt that way. So what do we attribute it to is what we were talking about before, was the court's decision in 2022 overturning the nationwide right to abortion. It's a significant turning point. State courts haven't escaped the sight either. In 2006, 62% of Americans said they trusted the courts in their own state. By 2025, that had fallen to 53%. One notable bright spot, trust in state courts is far less politically divided than trust in the Supreme Court. So, I don't know. No. Let's see what else here. So, the article goes on to lament fewer trials by jury mean that fewer Americans are familiar with the court system. And what they're recommending is expanded civics education. Okay, I'll never argue against education. However, the time, people are strapped for money. The average person is strapped for money, living paycheck to paycheck. Now you're going to tell them, well, we're going to go there for $5 a day, especially if you're self-employed, and then we're going to wonder. We're going to wonder what, right? And then to go there and get manipulated? As I see it, that's how people see it. Here we go. Self-employment often doesn't pay off. Decades-long study of entrepreneurs show. A 30-year-plus survey of 686 Americans found 4 distinct entrepreneurial career paths, not one universal age trend, which helps explain why earlier studies clash over whether self-employment peaks young or middle life. Whether venture was incorporated, predicted money, and a well-being better than what it began incorporated founders tend to earn more and feel better, while informal, unincorporated self-employment was led to lower well-being and no earnings gain. Starting an unincorporated business in middle age tracked the steepest well-being drop of any group, no financial payoff. Right? Again, there's a lot of myth. I mean, you can listen to Sheldon Primus and his podcast, Safety Consultant. It ain't easy. Right? 1,500-year-old DNA from graves rewrites the story of Europe's Dark Ages. This is from John Anderer again. Study finds. Ancient Greeks reveal how post-Roman kingdom took shape. Ancient DNA from 314 graves across 7 cemetery sites in western Hungary shows that about 500 CE, right, also known as, before the Common Era, BC, it used to be called, Northern European population moved into the region and mixed with locals rather than replacing them. 6th century burials carried roughly 59% of Northern European ancestry against about, CE is the year 500, right? AD. Against and about 39% Southern, a sharp shift from the Southern-leaning Roman era population. Cemeteries that looked nearly identical in artifacts and ancestry held strikingly different social structures, from tight elite bloodlines to sites with almost no familial ties at all. Right? So ancient genetic material pulled from hundreds of burials in what is now Hungary reveals that in one former Roman frontier region, the fall of imperial rule did not simply mean one people replacing the other. It set the stage for building something new. When the Western Roman Empire crumbled in the 5th century, historians have long imagined the aftermath of chaos, waves of so-called barbarian tribes sweeping in and wiping out what came before. A new study published in Science tells a far more complicated study, right? It's where everybody mixed together. I don't know. There is no healthy amount of alcohol, claims a major study. Again, reviewed by John Anderer from Study Finds Analysis. They're reviewing a paper by Kevin Shield and Catherine Keyes here from University of Toronto, not on the top 15 list, top 20 list, and Catherine Keyes from the top 20 list of universities, Columbia. In a nutshell, researchers found no protective health effect of alcohol at any consumption level. That means no hormesis there, folks. Men drinking 14 drinks per week face a 1 in 25 lifetime risk of dying from alcohol-related causes. Women face more than twice the liver disease risk of men at 14 drinks per week, tripling at 21. Study authors recommend the U.S. cap daily alcohol intake at 1 drink per day for all adults. Man, they take all the fun out of everything, right? Feeling both happy and sad during a song, Science says that's normal. This is a study find, again, reviewed by John Anderer, research led by, you're going to love this name, Margarita Baltazar, Evala Brunat, and Subi Sarrecalio. I did pretty good. University of, and I'm not even going to pronounce that, Jyva umlaut, Skyla umlaut. A global study of 2,100 people found that 90% felt both positive and negative emotions when listening to a personally meaningful song. People who use music for fun or mood regulators reported less emotional complexity than those who use it for self-expression, identity, or memories. Age, personality traits like conscientiousness and emotional stability and cultural background were all linked to how emotionally layered music feels. The study was observational, cannot prove these factors cause differences in emotional experience. Right, well, I think now, as an aside, I think this is why AI music is going to be popular, because it's going to be geared to what you're doing. I mean, now, who would have ever thought? Safety themed music? Ooh. Ancient campfire evidence pushes back history of human fire by hundreds of thousands of years. And this is from Again, study finds and research led by Yolanda Fernandez-Halvo, Dr. Leoria Kolska-Horowitz, right? And scientists use a crime scene trick to find evidence of human fire used nearly 2 million years ago. A South African cave has yielded evidence of fire use dating back somewhere between 1.07 and 1.79 million years ago, pushing back one of the oldest known records of early human fire use. A researcher has used a forensic technique that makes ancient burned bones glow red under special filter glasses, allowing fast, non-destructive detection in the field. Tiny owl regurgitated mouse bones, accidentally scorched when cave fires ignited pellet piles, served as an independent marker of ancient flames. Evidence points to early Homo erectus carrying fire into the cave from outside, not making it on demand. All right. People ask me what was the greatest invention by humankind. Fire is one, but what ranks up there is chlorinated water also. So we remember Mama's Little Helper, right, from the Rolling Stones. Mother's Little Helper. And helps her on her way, makes it through her busy day. Right, I'm probably going to get a licensing violation there. Getting a new generation of moms who get high. Weed, they say, is what helps them survive full-time parenting. But at what cost, according to Sarah Levy. Taylor Mitchum's baby was born in March 2020. By the time they both left the hospital, world had shut down. Mitchum had no extended family nearby and no friends who could visit. Her husband was around, but because he was nervous about the newborn's fragility, he felt responsible for most of the child care. Her postpartum days were endless and isolating. The challenge is heightened by the day-to-night transition of infant care. She said, seeing the sun come up, then seeing the sun go down, and knowing you're in it, nowhere to go, no escape. Eventually, infant pressures were replaced by toddler demands. She still felt isolated and yearned. This is from archive.ph and from, I'm not sure who this is, from the Atlantic. Right, so life is hard. If you're going to have something that can take the edge off a little bit, why not? She suffered from anxiety and ADHD. Mitchum, a 36-year-old based Colorado, now calls herself a garden mama. She posts about her cannabis routine to more than 120 followers on TikTok, and where more than 76,000 videos feature the Garden Mom label, coffee and coffee, right? Coffee, C-O-F-F-E-E, and coffee, C-O-U-G-H-Y. A morning ritual of smoking before the children wake up. It's a common genre. Other videos show moms using cannabis during nap time or before the dinner, bedtime, witching hour. For some, posting about the lifestyle has led to influencer status and brand partnerships. Many garden moms use the same millennial chick glass gravity bongs, sharing discount codes and ad hashtags. As these women frame it, cannabis is not an escape but preparation, the medicine they need to take before the work as mothers. Again, I mean, it could be argued that it's avoiding reality. Now, the author here sympathizes with this one. I sympathize with them also. Postpartum, known a lot of women with it. Known a couple of women back in the day that never got off it, never got through it. And one woman around the corner in Woodbridge. I asked my mom about this. I said, what is this postpartum thing? When I was a teenager, she said it's just that your baby isn't inside you anymore. And that bothers women. Now there's a physiological reason. It's hormones that go along with this. And I don't know. Back in the day, they used to... I won't say what that is because people will start doing it again. And I don't really want to be responsible for that. But anyway... understanding context. Now, why do I always find out about this after it happens? London paralyzed as hundreds of naked cyclists take over streets. An annual bike ride in London has sparked more than just a debate. As butt naked, again, I always thought it was buck naked, but no, it's butt naked cyclists rode the streets in fierce protest. And here they are piling up. We got people falling over. Oh, okay, that's out with that. Horrific. A guy fell off a bridge, like an overpass, during a cycle race. Ah, what a horrible video. It was a sight that left jaws dropped. Central London was thrown into absolute skin-bearing chaos on Sunday when hundreds of cyclists stripped off their clothes, strapped on their helmets, and pedaled. They were not totally naked. They were wearing helmets and shoes. Right, the annual World Naked Bike Ride made its jaw-dropping return to the UK, turning famous. Hold on. Historic landmarks into a sea of bearskin body paint and booties. From Tower Hill, and this is from news.com.au. From Tower Hill to Hyde Park, sun onlookers were treated to what local media described as bums and helmets everywhere, as waves of naked riders took over the tarmac. While the internet was busy melting, the Australian expat who had just recently moved to London, Jeff Yohn, was standing on the streets taking it all in, although he admits he made a conscious effort not to look too closely. Yeah, baloney. New to the city, Mr. Yohn had seen the event advertised online beforehand and headed out to the pure curiosity. They used to do this back in at San Francisco back in the day, and they probably still do. But there were a lot of these things back in the 90s when I was into bike riding. Still into it, but, not like I should be. Here we have from defense1.com, shape charges from coffee grounds. Pentagon science chief describes future. Joseph Jewell sees AI, biotech, and new ways of reduction as likely to key military capability. Well, that's already been demonstrated when they use AI to choose targets in Iran. Over 2,000 of them from Grok. We reported on that yesterday. The fact that you can bring relevant capability to fight, as Ukrainians and allies have done in the conflict with Russia, that essentially didn't exist at the beginning of the fight. That's a new thing here. It's a thing the United States must learn to do, Jewell said. Ukraine's homegrown drone industry, to a large extent, sprung up almost overnight because of urgency. I think with our industrial resources, we certainly can do things at that scale, even more in a sophisticated way. Jewell noted that Ukraine has taken out the Russian Navy out of the fight without much of a navy of its own. The way they were able to do that, well, were several things. First of all, their weapon systems are small and undetectable. Second of all, they had a lot of them. So multi-vector attack, and someone could say that about the Iranian conflict also. Right? And how are they doing this? They're trying to, the Pentagon removing patents, government-held patents, and selling licenses. He said no fees, right? No-fee patent licenses. Jewell audited the promise of biotech combined with AI. He said in a new biointruder thermal coating. They helped drones obscure the heat signatures developed through Biomade, a DoD-sponsored manufacturing innovation institute. He also described an experiment in which Marines in the Pacific used 3D printers and other tools to field-produce shaped charges with local materials, plastic water bottles, crushed volcanic rock, coconut husks, and coffee grounds. They all detonated, actually. Volcanic rocks were most effective. The thing that's amazing to me is that this was 3D printed. You effectively have 99% reduced the time to point of use because you can make it in the field from materials that are endemic in the Indo-Pacific. So my understanding here is that you can actually make stuff out of natural materials here with that. Again, coffee grounds, 47 to 50% carbon, so that's not surprising. Same thing with coconut husks. Plastic water bottles, crushed volcanic rock. I don't know what's in volcanic rock. I don't know. Right? And what they're doing is everything, Now, this is actually relevant to us here. Usually we're not part of this story, but we're part of the story on this one. A couple years back, all of a sudden I got all of these hits on this program from Finland. And I'm thinking, what the hell, Finland? Well, guess what? Finland, a couple years ago, said, start preparing for nuclear war. And guess where they went? They went to Safety Wars to learn about disaster preparation. True story. We were one of the top-rated safety podcasts in Finland for December, I think it was 2024. So, hey. Finland has passed laws which lift the ban on nuclear weapons as it faces increased security concerns posed by Russia. The new bill follows the import and transfer, supply, and possession of nuclear arms in Finland for national defense. The government cited an unpredictable security environment and added that as of now, Finland won't host any nuclear weapons. The previous bill, the 1987. So what is this? So this is a bill, right? So the one bill says, right? As of now, Finland will not host any nuclear weapons. We're trying to change that. Defense Minister Antti Hakan said the 1987 act created an awkward situation for Finland, a NATO member as of April 2023. NATO is focused on nuclear deterrence for the collective defense while working in part because each country agreed to help another one, even in its nuclear capabilities. Now, Finland could, in theory, host nuclear weapons for NATO, giving the alliance a closer edge on Russia, which has upped aggressive tactics in the years since it invaded Ukraine. Elon Musk feud with Delaware may transform corporate America. This is out of the New York Times. Okay. So, North Orange Street in Wilmington, Delaware is so aggressively flying this route that it... Now, okay, number one, Delaware hosts a whole bunch of companies, right? So why Delaware? Under our system of government, corporate oversight was left to the states, and in time it became permissible for a company based in one state to register its business in another. Pineside's Delaware, with its incentives it offered, proved to be an especially popular choice these days as the legal domicile, with two-thirds of the companies in Fortune 500, including limited liability companies, more than 2 million business entities incorporated in Delaware, which is more than double the number of people. All right, so why in here? The publicly traded shareholder litigation enforcement mechanism, and over the decades, Delaware has established such a rich and influential body of case law has become the de facto arbiter of U.S. law. But thanks to no small part to the wrath of Elon Musk, that may be changed. In 2024, Delaware court struck down a compensation package worth an estimated $55 billion. The Tesla, the electric automaker, had awarded Musk its chief executive. He responded with fury. He switched Tesla's legal home to Texas, did the same with his rocket and satellite company SpaceX, and encouraged others to follow suit. Never incorporate your company in the state of Delaware, he wrote on X, the social media platform that he owns. Declaring war on Delaware, Musk tapped into simmering discontent with the state's legal climate. Many corporate executives believe that Delaware judges were applying excessive scrutiny to proposed mergers and other transactions, and were all but inviting litigation, in part because of the large fees that they were sometimes granting plaintiffs' attorneys. The Musk case was emblematic. An individual who owned just 9 shares in Tesla filed a lawsuit challenging Musk's compensation. The court not only found in his favor, but awarded his lawyers $345 million in fees. All right, so this is from New York Times Magazine. Go and check it out. Article by Michael Steinberger. Why young people are breaking up with casual sex. A once common bedroom act is officially on the brink of extinction as young Aussies adopt a new relationship trend. All has to do with, I'm going to say this, it all has to do with population control. It's an age-old nightlife scenario. You lock eyes with a stranger across a crowded bar, share a couple of cocktails, followed by the classic worship shame the next morning. According to a new sex trends report by Love Honey, the casual hookup is officially facing extinction as young people reject the act in favor of more meaningful encounters. Elizabeth Newman, sexologist and head researcher of global sex toy retailer a retailer, told news.com.au that younger generations aren't necessarily more prudish, but are instead reacting to radically altered dating climate, probably because of COVID. And that's what it says here. More than a quarter of late night venues closed since 2020. Yeah, because it's, right? Range of factors, yeah, COVID being one of them. Range of factors including dating app fatigue, a massive decline in nightlife, and the ongoing cost of living crisis. I'm not encouraging this kind of behavior, but I'll say this much. Back in the day, we didn't need bars and stuff and nightlife and stuff like that. I mean, stay at home. Unless you're with your parents. Then don't live with your parents. What do you want from me? I've had a lifelong interest in this story. Noah's Ark could finally be found after historically promises irrefutable proof. This goes on once every 10 years or so. Let's see what happens. So, as a review, Noah's Ark, where God, when he flooded the world, had Noah have animals in there, right? Save all the animals. And certain things like for the clean animals, you had more of them than unclean animals, that sort of thing, and a whole bunch of stuff. Researchers believe they have identified a site as a massive man-made structure buried beneath the site of Mount Ararat, right? What they think is Mount Ararat. They've received official approval to put their money to the test. The team behind Noah's Ark scans announced that its Turkish partners have secured government permits to conduct what it describes as the most comprehensive scientific investigation undertaken at the Dunapar Formation near Mount Ararat. The expedition will include non-destructive core drilling, advanced remote sensing technology, next-generation imaging systems. Now this, they have a picture of it here. It just looks... Here, Turkey's tallest peak is Mount Ararat. Turkey's, right, the Dunapar Formation emerged less than a century ago. I don't know how, and when you look at it, maybe it fits about what a cubit, 300 cubits is, right? That's how they measured it. Radar captured a series of right angles about 20 feet down, which researchers believe could be rooms that held animals on the ark. According to local reports, heavy rains and earthquakes in May 1948 washed away the surrounding mud on the mountain, revealing a mysterious formation that was then discovered by Curtis Shepard. The Bible states that Noah's Ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat after a 150-day flood that drowned the earth and every living creature not sheltered inside the wooden vessel. What is intriguing is that the formation sits on a mountain with a peak that some believe matches the Ark's shape and dimensions. The idea that the Ark landed on Mount Ararat has long sparked debate, while many scientists argue the formation is naturally occurring. Looks naturally occurring to me. I don't know. Let them go out there and figure this out. Is what I say. So the biblical measurements are 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. That's approximately 515 feet long, 86 feet wide, and 52 feet tall. Measurements in the formation in Turkey appear to match those given in the Bible. Well, I don't know. Good luck to you. Please don't get hurt. So here we have in the Bay Area, San Francisco Gate, rogue employee accused of hiding uranium sample at infamous San Francisco site. A former U.S. employee Navy subcontractor suspected of bringing hundreds of radiological items and chemical waste into Hunter's Point without the knowledge of government officials, according to new details released by the Navy. The Navy first reported in May that unauthorized material was found in a cabinet at the Hunters Point shipyard on April 8th. The individual suspected of the material was an employee of RSN Tech, subcontractor for the Navy, hired to remediate the area. I've worked with NTech before, many, many years ago. I don't know if it's the same NTech. It was a rogue situation by a rogue employee I'm sure it is. Right? About 200 radiological items, including uranium and thorium samples, along with 70 jars of various chemicals, were discovered in a lock cabinet at the Superfund site. According to Michael Pound, the Navy's environmental coordinator for the area, the materials were studied in a 4,000 square foot annex called Building 400A. I can just say that they did not have authorization to have those materials in that building. Many of the radiological items were described as well as check sources or small samples of radioactive isotopes that can be used to calibrate machinery such as a Geiger counter. So these things are roughly like that big, right? These samples can be bought online without regulatory oversight. It's unclear if the radiological items found were used to check sources. They also say they believe items were brought into the building between 2019, so this is pretty recent, 2019 and 2022, by an employee of Navy subcontract Envirochem, which was acquired by RSI Entech in 2023. The employee is no longer employed there. I'd love to know how they know it was this person. So there's a committee set up for this. Both committee members and the public asked a pointed question about why the Navy was unaware of these materials for so long and why the company is leading the cleanup effort when its rogue employee was suspected of bringing in the materials. Pound said the EPA official and naval officer in charge of construction make trips into the area to oversee the work. He said the RSI Entech was transparent about discovering the material and was working collaboratively with them. All right. All right. Grim Doomsday Formula. Calculates exactly when mankind will be wiped out for good. A controversial statistical formula is being used by boffins to predict the moment of humanity will be wiped out for good. Scientists assume the vote, and it's complicated. I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know what? I'm going to cut it right there and there. And we will. I will see you tomorrow. So let's go for the outro again, and that's what
The
we'll
views
do.
and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.